Have you ever reached a point in your life where giving up felt easier than trying one more time? A moment when you had already given everything, and still walked away empty-handed. A moment when people stopped believing in you. When critics became louder than supporters. When failure wasn't just disappointing. It became part of your identity. Most people quit at that moment. Not because they're weak, because they're tired. Tired of hoping, tired of trying, tired of believing that things will ever change. But every once in a while, someone refuses to let failure write the final chapter of their story. Someone chooses to stand up. One more time, not because success is guaranteed, but because the dream is still worth fighting for. This is not the story of Lionel Messi's goals. You've seen those. This is not the story of his trophies. You already know them. This is the story of something much more powerful. The story of a man who spent years losing the one prize he wanted most. And never stopped believing, because before Lionel Messi became a World Cup champion, he became an expert at heartbreak. The world often remembers the ending, the celebrations, the confetti, the trophy, but very few remember how painful the journey was. After becoming the greatest player Barcelona had ever seen, many people believed there was nothing left for Messi to prove. He had won league titles, Champions League trophies, Ballon d'Or awards. He had broken records that once seemed impossible. From the outside, his career looked perfect, yet every time he returned to Argentina, everything changed. In Barcelona, he was adored. In Argentina, he was questioned. Every match became an examination. Every tournament became another opportunity for critics. People didn't compare him to ordinary footballers. They compared him to one man, Diego Maradona, a comparison that no player could ever truly win. Maradona had given Argentina its greatest football memory, a World Cup. Messi had given them brilliance. But brilliance wasn't enough. The country wanted one thing, the World Cup, and every year that dream remained unfinished. The pressure became heavier. Imagine carrying the expectations of an entire nation, not for one season, not for one tournament, for more than a decade. Millions believed Messi had to do something almost impossible. He had to become the greatest player in the world, and then somehow become even greater. That burden would test him in ways football never could. Because pressure doesn't only affect your body, it affects your mind. It follows you into training, into your home, into your thoughts. It whispers questions you desperately wish would disappear. What if they're right? What if I'll never do it? What if this dream was never meant for me? Every human being has heard those questions. Even Lionel Messi. In 2014, the dream came closer than ever before. Argentina reached the FIFA World Cup final. Only one match separated Messi from immortality. 90 minutes. One final step. The entire country believed. The entire world watched. When the final whistle blew, Germany were champions. Messi stood silently watching another team celebrate. One photograph captured everything. A lonely Messi walking past the World Cup trophy. Close enough to touch it, unable to lift it. That image became one of the defining moments of his career. Not because he failed, but because millions could feel the weight of that silence. Most people believed another opportunity would come. No one knew how painful the years ahead would become. In 2015, Argentina reached another final, the Copa America. Another chance, another dream, another defeat. 1 year later, history repeated itself. Another Copa America final, another heartbreaking loss. 3 major international finals, 3 painful defeats. The criticism became unbearable. People questioned his leadership. People questioned his mentality. Some even questioned his love for Argentina. Imagine giving everything you have, only to hear people say it wasn't enough. Eventually, even the strongest hearts grow tired. After the 2016 Copa America final, Lionel Messi shocked the football world. He announced his retirement from international football. For a moment, it seemed the story had ended. Not with victory, but with heartbreak. Many people misunderstood that decision. They called it emotional, weak, selfish. Perhaps it was none of those things. Perhaps it was simply the reaction of a man who had carried impossible expectations for too long. Because even heroes become exhausted. Even legends feel pain. Even the strongest people sometimes wonder whether continuing is worth it. And that is exactly where Messi's story becomes bigger than football. Because every person eventually reaches a moment where quitting feels reasonable. The question is, what happens next? The question is, what happens next? For Lionel Messi, the answer didn't arrive through a trophy. It arrived through the people. As news of his retirement spread across Argentina, something unexpected happened. Children cried. Fans gathered in the streets. Former teammates begged him to reconsider. Messages poured in from every corner of the country. For the first time in years, Messi realized something. People didn't love him only because they wanted trophies. They loved him because they saw themselves in him. A quiet boy, a humble leader, a man who kept trying even after falling again and again. Slowly, the noise of the critics became quieter than the voices of the people who believed in him. And that changed everything. A few weeks later, Messi made another decision. He returned, not because the pressure had disappeared. It hadn't. Not because people had stopped criticizing him. They hadn't. He returned because he refused to let pain decide how his story would end. That decision alone teaches one of life's greatest lessons. Sometimes courage isn't chasing a new dream. Sometimes courage is returning to the dream that already broke your heart. Years passed. Argentina continued improving. New players arrived. A new generation slowly formed around Messi. He was changing too. When he was younger, he tried to carry every match on his shoulders. Now, he trusted the people beside him. He became calmer, more patient, more mature. He discovered that true leadership isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about helping everyone around you believe they can do it too. Then came another unexpected challenge. In 2020, after spending more than 2 decades at Barcelona, the club he had called home since childhood entered one of the most difficult periods in its history. Financial problems, management issues, uncertainty, and then, the moment nobody believed would ever happen. Lionel Messi left Barcelona, the place where he had grown from a frightened 13-year-old into the greatest player the club had ever known. His farewell wasn't filled with celebration. It was filled with tears. Real tears, the kind that cannot be hidden. Many people saw a football transfer. Messi experienced the loss of a home. Once again, life reminded him that even beautiful chapters eventually come to an end. He joined Paris Saint-Germain. A new country, new teammates, new expectations. The adjustment wasn't easy. For perhaps the first time in years, football didn't seem effortless. Criticism returned. People questioned whether his best years were behind him. Others wondered if he had already played his last great match. But if Messi's journey teaches us anything, it is that difficult chapters are often preparing us for unforgettable endings. Then came 2021. The Copa America, another tournament, another opportunity, another chance to silence years of heartbreak. Argentina reached the final. This time, something felt different. The team wasn't playing only for a trophy. They were playing for each other. And perhaps most of all, they were playing for Messi. When the final whistle blew, Argentina had finally done it. After years of pain, years of criticism, years of waiting, Lionel Messi lifted his first major international trophy with Argentina. He didn't celebrate like someone proving critics wrong. He celebrated like a man who had finally found peace. Millions of fans cried with him. Not because it was just another trophy. Because they knew everything it had taken to reach that moment. Most stories would end there. But life had one final gift waiting. One final chapter. One final dream. The FIFA World Cup, Qatar. 2022, perhaps the last opportunity of Messi's career. The last chance to complete the story that had begun decades earlier on the streets of Rosario. The pressure returned. Only this time, Messi was different. He no longer played with fear. He no longer played to answer critics. He played with freedom. The freedom that comes from surviving every disappointment life could throw at you. Match after match, Argentina fought. Messi inspired. The dream slowly became real once again. And standing between him and football immortality was one final match, one final obstacle, one final chance to rewrite history. Sometimes, life doesn't reward the person who never fails. Sometimes, life rewards the person who simply refuses to stop trying. Life rewards the person who simply refuses to stop trying. December 18, 2022. The Lusail Stadium in Qatar. More than 80,000 people filled the stands. Hundreds of millions watched around the world. It wasn't just another World Cup final. It was the ending to a story that had been unfolding for almost 2 decades. Argentina, France, Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappé. One generation preparing to pass the torch. Another determined to hold on to it. The match began perfectly for Argentina. Messi scored. The team played with confidence. The dream looked closer than ever before. For a while, it seemed destiny had finally arrived. But football has a way of testing your heart until the very last second. France fought back. Kylian Mbappé scored, then scored again. Within minutes, everything had changed. The stadium fell silent. The dream that had felt so close was slipping away once again. For a brief moment, millions of Argentine fans feared they were about to relive every painful memory. 2014, 2015, 2016, another final, another heartbreak, but champions aren't remembered because life is easy. They're remembered because they continue believing when everyone else begins to doubt. Extra time began. Messi found himself in the perfect position. The ball crossed the line. Goal. Argentina were in front again. He didn't celebrate with anger. He celebrated with relief, as though years of pain had been lifted from his shoulders for just a moment. Yet the drama wasn't over. France earned another penalty. Mbappé completed his hat-trick. The score was level again. 3 goals from Messi, 3 goals from Mbappé. The football world watched two extraordinary players refusing to surrender. Then came the penalty shootout. Perhaps the cruelest way any sporting event can end. Months, sometimes years, reduced to a few kicks from 12 yards away. Every heartbeat felt louder. Every second felt longer. Argentina converted. France missed. Argentina converted again. And then, one final kick. When Gonzalo Montiel's penalty hit the back of the net, time seemed to stop. Lionel Messi dropped to his knees. His teammates ran toward him. The stadium exploded. The dream that had survived years of heartbreak had finally become reality. The little boy from Rosario, who had once been told he was too small, who had left home at 13, who had lost final after final, who had retired, who had returned, who had endured years of criticism, was finally a World Cup champion. But perhaps the most beautiful part of that moment wasn't the trophy. It was the smile, a smile that looked different from every celebration before it. Not the smile of someone proving the world wrong. The smile of someone who had finally found peace. Years earlier, people had questioned whether Messi could ever lead Argentina. Now, his teammates lifted him onto their shoulders. An entire nation celebrated with him. Not because he had become a different player. Because he had never stopped believing. Looking back, it's easy to remember the ending. The golden trophy, the celebrations, the photographs that will live forever. But those moments only exist because of everything that came before them. The tears, the criticism, the defeats, the doubts. Without those chapters, the ending would never have meant the same. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson Lionel Messi leaves behind. Your story should never be judged by its hardest chapter. Because one painful season, one failure, one rejection, one disappointment, does not decide how your life ends. Only you decide whether the story continues. Messi could have accepted retirement in 2016. He could have believed the critics. He could have walked away from the dream forever. Nobody would have blamed him. But he chose something far more difficult. He chose to believe one more time. One more tournament. One more opportunity. One more chance. Sometimes, that's all life asks of us. Not perfection, not certainty, just the courage to try again. Because you never know which attempt will change everything. Today, when people talk about Lionel Messi, they speak about the World Cup, the Ballon d'Or awards, the records, the goals, the trophies. Those achievements are extraordinary, but perhaps his greatest achievement isn't something you can place inside a museum. It's the lesson he gave to millions of people around the world. That failure is never final, unless you decide it is. That dreams don't have an expiration date, and that the people who eventually change history are often the same people who once thought about giving up. Lionel Messi didn't become immortal because he never lost. He became immortal because he refused to let losing become the end of his story. And maybe, that's the lesson every dreamer needs to hear. Because somewhere, someone is living through their own 2014, their own 2016, their own chapter filled with disappointment. If that's you, remember Lionel Messi. Remember that sometimes, the greatest victory of your life is waiting just beyond the moment when quitting feels easiest. And that is why the world will never remember Lionel Messi only as one of football's greatest players. It will remember him as one of the greatest examples of perseverance the sporting world has ever seen.